The continent Asia, home to the world's oldest civilization and known as the largest continent in the world. There's no surprise that its indigenous cultures pioneer many practices that had been integral to different societies throughout history. From the famous temples of Angkor Wat to the mystical lands of Java, the story of early Malay civilization begins itself in one area, a region where stories about the past continues to inform and influence the rest of the world.
Between China and India lies the regions that today is called Southeast Asia. It has two major parts. One is the mainland region, extending southward from the Chinese border down to the tip of the Malay Peninsula. The other is the extensive archipelago, or chain of islands, most of which is part of the present-day Indonesia and the Philippines. Ancient mariners call the area the Golden Region, or the Golden Islands. These two highly advanced and densely populated regions contains a vast mixture of races, cultures, and religions. The mountains, river valleys, and islands of the Southeast Asia had a major effect on its political, cultural, and economic development. These geographical barriers may help explain why Southeast Asia is one of the few regions in Asia that was never unified under a single government. The geographical barriers encourage the development of separate, distinctive cultures within Southeast Asia, with diverse cultural practices, such as different religions and languages.
The Vietnamese were one of the first peoples in Southeast Asia to develop their own state and their own culture. This strong sense of cultural identity caused difficulties for would-be conquerors as the Chinese conquered Vietnam in 111 BC. In the 10th century, they finally overthrew Chinese rule. Chinese influence remained, however, Vietnamese rulers realized the advantages of taking over the Chinese model of centralized government. The new Vietnamese state, which called itself Dai Viet or Great Viet, adopted state of Confucianism. Following the Chinese model, the rulers called themselves emperors and adopted Chinese court rituals. They also introduced the civil service examination as a means of recruiting government officials on the basis of merit instead of heredity. The Vietnamese adopted much of the Chinese administrative structure, such as social class ruling. The state of Dai Viet became a dynamic force on the Southeast Asian mainland. As its population grew, it expanded southward. Several centuries of bitter warfare with its southern neighbor, the Vietnamese gained victory by 1500. Continuing their march on the south, the Vietnamese reached the Gulf of Thailand by 1600.
In the 9th century, the Kingdom of Angkor arose in the region that is present-day Cambodia. The kingdom was formed when a powerful figure named Jayavarman united the Khmer people and established a capital at Angkor Thom. In 802, Jayavarman was crowned as God King of his people. For several hundred years, Angkor, or the Khmer Empire, was the most powerful state in mainland Southeast Asia. Angkor faced enemies on all sides. To the east were the Vietnamese and the Kingdom of Champa. To the west was the Burmese Kingdom of Bagan. With the arrival in the 1300s of new peoples from the north, known today as the Thai, Angkor began to decline. In 1432, the Thai from the north destroyed the Angkor capital. The Angkor ruling class fled to the southeast, where they set up a new capital near Phnom Penh, the capital of present-day Cambodia.
The Thai first appeared in the 500s as a frontier people in China. Beginning in the 11th or 12th century, Thai groups began moving southward. This process was encouraged by the Mongol invasion of China in the mid-1200s. These migrating people eventually came into conflict with Angkor, destroying the Angkor capital in 1432. The Thai set up their own capital at Ayutthaya on the Chao Phraya River, where they remained as a major force in the region for the next 400 years. Although many converted to Buddhism, the Thai were also influenced by Hindu religion and Indian culture in their political practices, dance, and literature. This unique blend eventually became the modern-day culture of Thailand.
The Thai were also threatened from the west by the Burmese people who had formed a society along the Swallow and Arawadi River. The Burmese had migrated from Tibet beginning in the 600s, probably to escape Chinese armies. The Burmese were pastoral people, but they adopted farming soon after their arrival in Southeast Asia. In the 11th century, they founded the first great Burmese state, the Kingdom of Pagan. Like the Thai, they converted to Buddhism and adopted Indian political institution and culture. During the next 200 years, Pagan became a major force in the western part of Southeast Asia. The capital city was at the center of a network of highways which allowed it to exert power over large distances. It also played an active role in sea trade throughout the region. Attacks by the Mughals in the late 1200s, however, weakened Pagan, causing it to decline.
In the Malay Peninsula and the Indonesian archipelago, a different pattern emerged. For centuries, this area had been tied to the trade that passed from East Asia into the Indian Ocean. The area had never been united under a single state. However, the vast majority of the people of the regions were of Malay background, but the people were divided into numerous separate communities. Two organized states eventually emerged in the region. In the 8th century, the state of Srivijaya came to dominate the trade route passing through the Strait of Malacca. At the same time, the kingdom of Salyendra emerged in eastern Java. Both states were influenced by the Indian culture, whereas Srivijaya depended on trade. The wealth of Salyendra was based primarily on farming.
In the late 1200s, the new kingdom of Mahapahit was founded. It became the greatest empire the region has yet seen. In the mid-14th century, Mahapahit incorporated most of the archipelago and perhaps even parts of the mainland under a single rule. Mahapahit did not have long to enjoy its status lately. After the Muslim conquest of northern India, Muslim merchants, either Arabs or Indian converts, settled in port cities in the region and began to convert the local population. Around 1400, an Islamic state began to form in Malacca, a small town on the western coast of the Malay Peninsula. Traders found it a natural place to replenish their supplies of food and water. Malacca soon became the major trading port in the region and a cheap rival to Mahapahit. From Malacca, Muslim traders and the Muslim faith moved into the interior of the peninsula.
The states of Southeast Asia can be divided into two groups: agricultural societies, whose economies were largely based on farming, and trading societies, which depended primarily on trade for income. States such as Vietnam, Angkor, Pagan, and Sailendra drew most of their wealth from the land. Others such as Srivijaya and the Sultanate of Malacca supported themselves chiefly through trade. At the top of the social ladder in most Southeast Asian societies were the hereditary aristocrats. They held both political and economic wealth. Most aristocrats lived in major cities. Angkor Thom, for example, was a city with royal palaces and parks, a massive parade ground, reservoirs, and numerous temples.
Beyond the major cities lived the rest of the population, which consisted of farmers, fishers, artisans, and merchants. In most Southeast Asian societies, the majority of people were probably rice farmers who lived at a bare level of subsistence, paid heavy rents or taxes to a landlord or local ruler. Most of the societies in Southeast Asia gave greater rights to women than did their counterparts in China and India. Women worked side by side with men in the fields and often played an active role in trading activities.
Hindu and Buddhist ideas began to move into Southeast Asia in the first millennium AD. However, the new religions did not entirely replace existing beliefs. In all Southeast Asian societies, as in China and Japan, old beliefs were blended with those of the new faiths. In this process, the king played a central role. The ruler of Angkor, for example, was seen as a living link between the people and the gods. Buddhism also spread to Southeast Asia. It made little impact, however, until the introduction of Theravada Buddhism in the 11th century. From Burma, Theravada spread rapidly to the other areas of Southeast Asia. Eventually, Theravada Buddhism became the religion of the masses in much of Southeast Asia. It teaches the people can seek nirvana through their own efforts. They do not need priests or rulers. Moreover, it tolerated local gods and posed no threat to established faith.
Over the course of time, the region of Southeast Asia established major developments seen in other parts of the world, as well as events that have affected those other regions. It traces major transcultural phenomena, from religious to commercial, that span multiple periods and geographical regions. That's why Southeast Asia is considered to be the home of the Malay.